Hello and welcome to another episode of the Transfer Show by Anfield Index. Now, I'm sure some of you will realise that I'm not Trev Downey, unfortunately, but I am joined by Dave Davis as always. So, how are we, Dave?
Well, I'm mixed, Ben. I'm not going to lie. I'm excited because we've got transfers to talk about. We've got utter filth to be updating on, and there is some good and interesting stuff. So that's in the positive comment. However, naturally, it's my old mucker, Trev Downey, but because of the absolute bourgeois bastards at Vodafone Island, he is not with me. So I was like, Eddie, Gags, Greg, and Greg especially. Anything like, get me, like, we're an elite show. We need an elite co-host. And they've sent me a 16-year-old, Ben. Do you know what I mean? So it's all on me to sort of keep the level up tonight, isn't it, really? And obviously get you to put down your fucking Beano and your Blue Wickeds and get you concentrating. But we will try and bring you some transfer goods. We promise.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're going to be short of anything, are we? I mean, the transfer window kind of hasn't ended, has it? I mean, the whole contract situation, and we're constantly linked with players, but we'll get straight into it. Obviously, we'll start with the contracts. I know some people may be a bit tedious. It's a bit of a tedious subject at the minute, but yeah, what's the latest with the contracts, do you think? And Salah in particular has come out and done he's done an interview recently as well, hasn't he? So what's the latest on Salah?
Good question, mate. The latest on Salah is, and this is where we'll deal with facts and then we can get into speculation because everyone loves a good bit of speculation and guessing and predicting and giving their thoughts. But let's deal with the absolute facts that we've got. So we think December the 8th, David Ornstein did tweet that Liverpool have made an opening contract offer to Mo Salah. So any of the debate, Ben, about isn't there something on the table? Like there is. Now, you'd think as well, they ain't going to be making an actual official proposal unless they believe it's going to get accepted or there's something there, isn't it? So we know an offer is on the table for Mo Salah. We've not heard anything. So we've probably got to go along the lines of it's not been accepted. So we're kind of waiting to see like what's developing, what's building, what is going to happen with this Mo Salah situation. Now, never in my life did I think we would be leaning in so heavily to the words of the likes of Indy Callier and more importantly, Ben, that great football font of knowledge, Sergio Aguero. Yes, Sergio Aguero. Not that long ago, literally December the 17th, 2 days ago. As I understand it, Salah's renewed his contract with Liverpool for 2 more seasons. I think this should clear all doubts over his future. So let's be honest, Ben. When we read that, or when we heard it tweeted, whatever you had, we were all giving it the like, please, praise be to Jesus. Let Salah have signed his contract. We were like, come on, this could be the news. But then we were also at the same time thinking, hold on. Has Sergio Aguero complete a journalism type of thing? Is Sergio Aguero now in Argentina, wherever he is, a patch journo? Is that what we are treating Sergio Aguero as? So for Mo Salah, that is where we are a little bit. Everyone's waiting and there's speculation. And I'll be honest, Anfield Index, we've heard that positive things, but we've said this before, Ben, you know, we can hear positive things. Until that contract is signed, and until that big handsome bastard is leaning at the AXA or with his Christmas, wherever he's doing his photos, that is what we ultimately care about. The only other little bit that we got, and it's worth giving everyone this, is kind of a bit like, how would I put this? Back to the Future, Marty McFly. I know you're only like 12, Ben, so you'll have no idea what I'm talking about. So ask your mum and your dad afterwards.
Yeah, I'll just go along with it.
Yeah, literally, Back to the Future. What I mean by that is it kind of unfolded this at the end of last season in the last transfer window. So rewind back to the end of summer transfer window 2023. And actually, there was that Saudi offer on the table, massive, massive money for Mo Salah. And Rami and Mo, we got told, did ask Liverpool, you know, please consider this. This is a good deal for all parties concerned. Klopp, and we know FSG said, not a chance, rejected. not doing it at all. However, the bit of info we got linked to that, Ben, was that at that time, Salah and Rami told Liverpool, well, if you're not going to accept this, just to be clear, we are not going to sign a renewal with you or do a new contract. So it's kind of a thing like, well, surely there's offer, surely negotiating, surely they're pushing it. Who knows exactly? Don't get me wrong. Maybe they were waiting a little bit, but that was the info. And we got it verified from a few sources as well. We got to be honest on that. So with that in mind, maybe it explains a little bit about why there was almost the murmurs that Salah would be the least likely originally, or that I think that's changed and we'll come to that, don't get me wrong. But maybe that interview at Old Trafford, the Sky one where he says they've not made me an offer. I don't know. This is where we're going 2-2 and could be getting 264. But you do just wonder, Ben, is that the bit where the club thought, oh, shit, in the words of, the quiet words of John the Baptist, let's get this fucker done and let's start going type of thing. So maybe, just maybe, that explains why there's been a bit of slowness on it. But key things to take away. There is an offer on the table for Mo Salah. Liverpool are negotiating. They are hopeful. And you've got homework on watching Back to the Future. So those are the updates so far.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part about this is obviously it is the story, isn't it? And everyone's kind of putting their 2 pence in. Jamie Carragher's been putting his thoughts in, and now you've got Sergio Aguero. I guess it is just a matter of waiting, and I know some people are getting really worked up about it, but until we hear from a David Ornstein or a club, that is the next we're going to hear, isn't it? I know people love to speculate, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. But in terms of Van Dijk and Trent, I know Trent's done an interview recently as well, hasn't he? Speaking about legacy and all that talk. So where are we standing on that? Because you mentioned that Trent does seem the least likely amongst. I think if you ask most Liverpool fans, that seems the least likely, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think, and I get that. Listen, I completely get why people would say Trent's the least likely for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's the only one of the three that's not unequivocally come out and said, I want to stay. The other two have come out. They've said that, everyone knows where they stand on that. And even the murmurs, if you want, the briefings, there's been a bit of uncertainty. And again, we're just saying this, we haven't got this verified, but there is a lot of suggestions that there has actually been a few offers turned down by Trent as well, so there's just a few question marks about that. That doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, though. That was my thoughts on it. Players got a right to negotiate and, demand top dollar, but it's all a bit strange with Trent, is the way I would phrase it. Just personal opinion. But you mentioned his interview and he just talked about legacy. So let us just play everyone a very short bit from his Men in Blazers interview from today.
Just by the stadium. It's got your words on it, Trent. I'm just a normal lad from Liverpool whose dream has just come true. I mean, Trent, you've won everything there is to win with your club. The Champions League, the Premier League, the FA Cup, pair of Carabaos. What are you dreaming about? What else would you like to accomplish other than beating Mo Salah at chess?
Of course, winning more trophies, but I think on a personal level is a legacy, building a legacy. I think that's something that is important.
A legacy is what, Trent?
I think just being spoken about in the highest regards. I think, especially after you've finished. So I think in 10, 15 years, if I'm spoken about as one of the best right backs or the best right back, then that's what I'm playing for now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, legacy. If it is legacy and being regarded as the best right back in the world, I'm just using Trent's words there, Ben. I'm not sort of, adapting it in any way at all. I'm just using what he said. If that is the case and you're talking about legacy, maybe you should ask the likes of Steve McManaman and Michael Owen about their legacy and how they're seen, after moving and all that. And we know the legends that have stayed and how they're regarded differently. So if you want to talk about legacy, that will be my 2 pence worth, not that it really means anything. And also, you want to be the best right back in the world. How many interviews now, Ben, have we seen where Trent Alexander-Arnold is praising Arne Slot to high hell, saying like he's unbelievable, his coaching and his tactics and all this. Who is going to get you to be the best right back in the world? Because you've already told us that you've given him carte blanche to criticize everything and do that. That is the elite coach that's going to make you the best right back in the world. Now, I admired Don Carlo and everything at Real Madrid. There's something to like when a guy's practically smoking a cigar and doing that thing with his eyebrow on the sideline. He's an absolute legend of the game. But who is going to get you the legacy? Who is going to make you the best right back in the world? And those are your words, which also indicates that, and no one's naive enough to say money does not come into it, but money is not the priority. You know, I know that's easy to say and some will scoff at that, but hey ho, we can only base it on what Trent tells us. With all that, Ben, I know which way I'd be going.
Yeah, and the interesting thing I find about this as well is I know we all love Trent and we back his ability, but we've seen this move, like you said, with McManaman and Owen, but on so many other occasions, this move doesn't always work.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen it a little bit with Bellingham as well, where the patience is already running thin with him over there. So maybe he looks at his best friend and sees what he's doing over there and has a second think about it as well. So, like we say with all these, there's a long way to go with all these contract talks, isn't there? So I know people kind of have this pre-concept idea that Trent is going to leave, but I've said it all along. I think it's mainly because he has a club strongly linked with him. I think whereas the other two don't. So I think that creates that narrative instantly in your head. So, but yeah, I mean, Van Dijk's the last one, and Van Dijk's always been seen in contrast as the most kind of likely to renew, hasn't he? So, and there's mixed reports recently, but everything seems to be quite positive, hasn't it lately with Van Dijk?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say if you ask the fan base as a general consensus, who are you most confident out of the three? I think Van Dijk wins that hands down. I don't really think that's a contest, to be honest. And naturally, I mean, you'll have seen it. Everyone's seen it. The great Indy Callier, God bless his soul, tweeted, didn't he, about that Virgil's all done and other people have been hinting towards it. So naturally, as we do at AI, we harassed, we harangued, we messaged people, we shared a bit of info, we horse traded, like almost swapping cartons of cigarettes, like a day in the jail type of thing. We did what we needed to do to get a bit of info. And being honest, Ben, the info we got was mixed. I'm just going to be honest on that. Some people were like, yeah, get ready for the announcement. Now, no one said categorically, like, it's not done, just to sort of clarify. But the general consensus was it was pretty positive. So I think Van Dijk, now David Lynch mentioned this, which is interesting on Media Matters today. He's worked at the club previously. And as he said, normally the club, they don't really sit on these things because they know how they get out. Do you remember when Salah signed his renewal that day and it was out with an, they know how difficult it is. So there's a lovely, lovely idea that you keep everything under the tree and then Virgil van Dijk's holding his contract. And that might be true. And listen, I'd love it to be true. It's an awful long time to sit on that type of info, though, Ben, without that info getting out. But we can all dream, can't we? I still dream that Keane is going to knock up, completely start bollock naked and say, let's go for a drive in a Ferrari. But the reality of that happening, pretty small. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes I don't think this one is too far off, shall we say. So I am very hopeful, and I will have my baby Jesus praying gift ready as well, that there is something in this in the near future, mate.
Yeah, and there was a few reports. Was after the Madrid game that the press conference got brought forward and it was set to be announced. So that's kind of another indication of just kind of give it time. And I'm sure, like you say, I'm sure Van Dijk will renew and fingers crossed. But on the transfers, obviously contracts. We spoke so much about contracts in recent weeks, haven't we? But I can't wait to talk about some actual transfers, which, to be fair, has also been quite heavily present at the same time. Arne Slot's kind of been open but also tight-lipped at the same time on the transfer business, hasn't he? So what can we say about what Slot said so far?
I cannot believe that Arne Slot, as a Dutchman, doesn't play cricket, because he straight bats everything in these press conferences absolutely superbly, like cover drive, down the ground for 4, Nothing like straight off the middle of the bat, no edges, nothing. And that's the quote that he said. And it goes back, to be fair, to December the 3rd. So he said, we are having discussions every day. And that gets you excited when you hear that type of stuff. That's what we like ahead of the transfer window. No matter if there is a window coming up or not, it is a bit of a worry at the moment that the three defenders are out. But the good thing is, once the window opens, the defenders are back. And also, we are hoping, Ben, today, people may have clocked, Big Ibu tweeted that, didn't he, as well, or put it on Insta, whatever you kids do with your Snapchat bollocks or whatever it's called nowadays. But Ibu's put it out. So that's positive. Tsimikas is back last night. That's positive. In fact, injuries as a whole are pretty small, touch wood, crossing everything, like praying to every Jesus and everything like that at the moment. So that is positive. The only thing is, I'm not so positive it's going to be a busy January. I've got to be honest on that for positions. And I know people would love a left-sided defender, a left-back, whatever you want. And we'll probably get to some names like you said. I know people would love, Zubamendi to put the fucking PowerPoint down and the mountain bollocks and head over to like Mers. Everyone would love that type of stuff. There's no doubts about it at all. We're all guessing a little bit. And you're thinking he's not ruled anything out there. And obviously the word opportunistic, I guarantee you, will come out at some stage as well. But if you're asking me, do I genuinely, confidently think Liverpool will do business in January, Ben? I ain't going to lie that it's a yes. I've got to be honest on that.
Yeah, and people shouldn't really be surprised by that, should they? I feel like people always around this time of year kind of big up the January. More often than not, you don't sign anyone in January, especially when you're in the position that Liverpool are. So I saw, I can't remember who was saying it, but I saw someone saying that the title race could be decided by who is brave enough to go out and spend the money in January, because with City obviously falling off, Arsenal desperate need of a striker, Chelsea a goalkeeper and maybe some defenders, and Liverpool perhaps a midfielder. Do you think it's as simple as saying whoever's bravest in the January transfer window will walk the league? Or do you think, I think this Liverpool team's more than good enough the way it is we're proving it now to go and win the league.
It's a fair question. It's a good question, but there's a couple of things to that. Number one, I have no interest in being gaslit by the club. I don't want to hear any briefings around, we've signed the 3 contracts or we've done a couple of the contracts, so that's the money gone. That can get to, do you know what I mean? Because we've seen all that. So that is absolute nonsense. We know there's money there. We know they would have done the Zubamendi deal if they could have done and completed it. So I don't want to hear that. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's not just one or the other. You can do transfers and contracts, funnily enough. Clubs do it. I don't know why Liverpool seem to say that, gaslit people that they can. It's absolute nonsense, that. So we just need to keep that in mind. The third big thing is, mate, and I can't get away from this. You've always learned from history, and football has taught you that you should always fortify or reinforce from a position of strength. And we're topping everything right now. Now is the time where you should be looking and saying, and this is being honest, we could do with another one in midfield. We wanted it in the summer. Let's move the needle in the title race in our favour. That's the first thing. The second thing, I think it's more difficult for the left-back situation, because I don't see how you bring in, and we know about the targets and we'll talk about them, but I don't see how do you bring in those targets without bombing one of the others out, if that makes sense. Name one club that has, I know people are going to shout City, but I think it's like, even they've got Gvardiol and Aki, it's 2 left-backs, isn't it, really? No one has 3 left-backs. So people would say, you bomb out Robbo. Not going to happen. Part of the leadership group think that is not going to happen. He will not go anyway. Bomb out Tsimikas. Probably your best left-back right now, unfortunately. Are you going to upset Mo when he's a popular guy in the dressing room, all that type of thing? So I keep hearing all this talk of like, yes, it's right. I believe that. Yes, we should do this person. I believe that. I am not disagreeing. But just for those reasons, I don't think it'll happen. My only worry is, Ben, it's a long way to go back to your question, but others could do business that could close the gap. That's possible. Arsenal could get a striker. So could Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? There's just things that could happen. And the risk is, if we do nothing, work out long term, you deserve to get the book thrown at you. Let's just be clear on that. You know, it's a risk reward, isn't it? If you do nothing in the January transfer window and Liverpool don't win the biggest prizes, then, you know, the people at the top deserve to get the book thrown at them because we know the money is there. So I won't accept being gaslit and all that. But yeah, we are just going to have to see what happens. And let's be honest, it would be nice if none of the rivals got anyone in at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, and just on that, everyone always seems to forget that to sign a player more often than not, you need to move someone on. And from what I understand, in the summer, if someone came in for Simicast, Liverpool might have moved them on, but nobody did. Because left back, that left side defence was kind of a position that they were looking at. So to just assume that someone's going to come in January when his contract's running out, getting shorter and shorter as well. So there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. And one thing that always gets me when we talk about strengthening when we're on top is after winning the league in 2020, we didn't at all.
No.
We had a pretty quiet summer, and then the season after, we really paid for it. I'm sure we went into the next season with 3 proper centre backs. It was Matip, Gomez, and Van Dijk, and then obviously the injuries happened. And then we got Canadi the season after, and by that point, it was too little, too late. So I do hope there's strengthen while we're on top. And I'm with you. I'm not sure it'll be happening in January. But some of the names that have been mentioned. So on left back, Kirk has obviously been mentioned a little bit. Bournemouth have made a move for another player that's been linked with Liverpool, haven't they? Which kind of makes things a little bit interesting.
I think there's a little bit of games afoot with this Sherlock Holmes style, to be honest, Ben. I mean, Soler, the young Lannis, that we've talked about him before, sort of going back to the summer. Yes, they have watched him. Now, naturally, I'm sure people have seen this. There's quite a few reports in Argentina, isn't there, that Bournemouth have moved for Soler. And I get this. I looked at it and thought, could that mean, you know, so I'm moving my pieces, Soler's going there, Kirk has, which sounds great. Until, like I say, as we've done a bit of digging and pretty much sort of asking various journos and different bits. Bournemouth have been looking for a left back anyway because pretty much Kirkes is it for them. So they wanted more, you know, so there's that. And does it really make sense for Bournemouth to sell Kirkes when they get Soler? That's a big gamble, isn't it? Because we know how well they've done. The only way they would do that, Ben, is, let's be honest, and I think it's a massive if. I'm not saying I'm convinced they would do it. They would only do it for top dollar in January, wouldn't they? At which point, and I mean this, and this might upset people a little bit. I don't really care too much. Liverpool have been smart with their fullback business, haven't they? And I know you'll never get a bargain like Andy Robertson again. I know that you'll never get another 8 million. Simicast, about 11 to 12 million. I mean, let's be honest. If you're going to get Kirkes in January, let's not, mince words or pretend. Bournemouth are going to say 40 mil minimum, probably, aren't they? Because they'll probably go in there and go, do you know what? If we can get 40 million quid out of Liverpool, actually, we should really think about it. Now, my other part of that is we believe all our guys are the smartest in the business. I know that will get some guffaws, but Edwards, Hughes, they're supposed to be the operatives. I'm struggling. If someone said to me they're willing to sanction that, I'm like, 40 million quid on a left back or so in the January window. I think it'd help us, please. I wouldn't be like, oh, this is ridiculous. But I wouldn't call it smart business I know some people will guarantee you the title, and I get that argument. But just in terms of pure player value, would it be smart business, Ben? I'd struggle to call it that. It might be effective business and help. But yeah, so that's just, again, another reason why the Soler. I think Kirkes is on that list. That is the info we've got. Liverpool have heavily looked at them, spoke to his people, all that. We said that on the last transfer show. It just screams summer, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think most of the names that have been linked kind of scream summer, don't they? What's to even say that Kirkes comes in and, is chucked straight in and performs really well, you just don't know how he's going to do. So it's a massive risk to take to sign someone to just chuck them in at this point, especially in the middle of a title race. So I guess one of the names that does kind of make sense for January, but doesn't make sense in my mind just in general, is Cherky, who we've heard a bit of news about today. You'll have to talk me through this one because I can't wrap my head around it.
Well, we all had to sort of decipher French, or we're not a native speaking. But yeah, it's not a new name. We have to be honest about that. Cherky's been linked with Liverpool before, and when he was linked previously, we were all a bit like, hey, how does that make sense? Like, where does he fit in? Like in an attacking midfielder, like someone who can play on the right wings, like, you know, across the front. It's like, yeah, I'm not trying to be the rest of the player when I'm saying this, but general reports have come from sort of France, everything, that he's not the hardest working particularly. He is a flair player. But again, I'm just probably like most fans, where would he get his minutes? Where would he play? We could, and it's funny, every time we seem to be needing like a certain type of player, we get linked with an attacking midfielder, don't we? Or like a winger, that type of thing as well. So it's just a bit strange. Now, it's one of those, again, that we know Lyon are in a mess. We absolutely know Lyon are in a horrendous mess financially, despite what John Textor is saying there and denying. Like, the Ligue 1 have told them, like, you need to clear this debt, otherwise, you know, relegation happens. So there's fire sale talks, and it's one of those, it just makes me wonder, this is why you can't discount it out, Ben. If a player like this, with only a little time left on his contract, is available for something like 10 million, 50, you know, tops, or 15 tops, something like that, do the data boys and Edwards, Ward, you know, Hughes, everyone just go, we can't pass that up. We don't necessarily need him so much. It's not a need, it's a want job, isn't it? And they may be thinking, and this is the only way I can stretch it, being honest. They may be thinking, against a low block, you've got another tool on your belt, so to speak, like a Harvey Elliott, like a Cherky, then to call upon with a bit of flair, a bit of magic. But that's stretching it. I mean, let's be honest, I stretched that argument like big time. Do you know what I mean? To try and make that happen. So it's one of them weird ones where you would not bet a single red cent on this happening. But I wouldn't bet against it, weirdly, either. It's just an utterly, utterly bizarre one. But sometimes it's the bizarrest ones that happen, innit? So let's just see.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of, I mean, we went through and signed Minamino a few years ago, and at the time people were thinking, was it a need or was it a want? But to me, I like the player, I like Cherky, but with Chiesa coming in this summer, he's not going to get minutes on that right, really. Well, if Chiesa stays fit anyway. But he seems very, very similar to Elliott as well.
Think this, when Minamino came in, it was the original front three. Divock Origi was going through a few injuries. There was only 4, and he was the 5th to supplement it. Now, there's 6.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he would be one of the, because he could play attacking mid as he's done for Lyon and all that. But you're like, well, we can't have 7 attacking players. And even if you count as a midfielder, well, we've got Harvey, Szoboszlai, Jones, McAllister. They can all play in the 10. And I saw someone say it, and I thought, okay, maybe, because you could look at Szoboszlai as a further back option, if that makes sense, and there's more cover in the 6 and the 8. But he's stretching it, mate, isn't it? Let's be completely honest.
Yeah. And then you've got the likes of Ignoni, who you don't want to take minutes off as well. There's just so many reasons why I struggle to see this happening. But and another name that's been mentioned, I'm sure it was Ornstein who mentioned it, was Xavi Simons, and obviously he's another player who we've heard a lot about over recent years, and I believe Klopp was a huge fan of him, wasn't he? Did we see this? I mean, Ornstein labelled it as a probable destination, I'm pretty sure, which caught me by a bit of a surprise.
He did on his transfer sheet. There's no two ways about it. Yeah, and obviously David Ornstein's information, his resources is absolutely top-notch, superb. This isn't being disparaged in any way. But again, from sort of asking around and personal opinion, I don't see it. I really don't. And by the way, if we've got the money that it would take to get Xavi Simons as well, or to spend on a midfielder or a foot. We've got midfield and fullback issues that are far more pressing, haven't we, than bringing another attacking midfielder into the mix. Naturally, if people go, that can change the overall picture. But yeah, it might have been probable when Klopp was there, and obviously Klopp is now with the Red Bull group. So I think maybe people think, oh, he'll do us a favour. That's not Jurgen's job anymore at all, I'm afraid, in case anyone's got that in mind. But even in the summer, could be wrong, really struggling to see it, mate.
Yeah, and just moving on to exits now. I mean, a lot of people will be looking at the Southampton game as kind of like a audition for a few of them. You know, Taro Endo has been linked with a move away, and I mean, he was phenomenal the other night, wasn't he? And Tyler Morton. Where are we standing on any potential exits for Liverpool in January?
This was some of the juicy info. This was proper like your FHM type of stuff we had for like little bits today. And then certain journalists just pissed all over the chips, basically. So we genuinely had that, having sort of, again, asked around, got info. There was, I don't know if they still are, quite a lot of interest in Endo and Tyler Morton. All loans, though, being on his bed rather than permanent deals in that sense. However, David Lynch put it out today, didn't he? And he mentioned it on Media Matters, that everything coming from the club is now that Endo is not going anywhere. So that's probably one to rule off the docket. And I get it, to be honest, because he did really well the other night, didn't he? And his attitude's exemplary. So you could well think a lot of people are like, let's keep Endo. I get that to a point. And also, how much money could you get for him? Or is it worth a loan? Do you know what I mean? I'd rather keep him around than loan him. The only way I want to sanction any type of Endo exit, and football is ruthless, so I would do this in a heartbeat. Like, let's not pretend. But if a Zuba Mendes coming in and he's going out, we'd all do that. Let's not pretend football's not ruthless in a heartbeat. Tyler Morton as well. Again, we've had this quite a few loan offers. This one again, like, I just don't know a little bit after last night, because there's now two legs of a Carabao. There's Accrington's, there's ultimate cover. People say he's not played much, but also he's proven last night. I'm not saying he did the best job. This isn't trying to be critical, but he can cover right back in a pinch as well. Do you know what I mean? Type of thing as well. So I think now, based on, like, say, what we've heard in the last few days, what we've seen, if you'd have asked me a month ago, I'd have gone, I'd be surprised if Endo's agent isn't just feeling the ground. And Morton's agent, if he's worth his salt, he's definitely feeling the ground for January. Morton, I wouldn't be surprised still, but it looks like, as it stands, we have got to rule out an Endo exit for January.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the camp that I'm kind of glad Endo's staying, to be fair. Like you say, I think for me, you only let him go if someone's coming in, and like we said before, we're not sure on whether that will happen. So, but yeah, for Tyler Morton, I'm sure a permanent deal is kind of the next thing now. I'm not sure what a loan really achieves for either party now. But yeah, is there any other potential exits to look out for, or?
No, well, sorry, I'm saying no, and I'm just lying to you straight away. The only other things that we have is the sort of asking that probably the youngsters, James McConnell, Jayden Dans, that will be looked at, definitely. I think people know about this, is no secret, but the Cade Gordon loan, and the club really liked Cade Gordon. He had a lot of, for want of a better phrase, growing pains, didn't he, and developing to do that way. That loan at Norwich has not quite worked out. So I think a lot of people are expecting that to get terminated, him to come back and then look at another loan. Not that it's guaranteed, but that's the suspicion as well. But yeah, probably the other exits are and I suspect James McConnell, they've got a lot of interest in James McConnell, apparently, from various championship clubs, etc. Jayden Dans, I know last summer was close to Plymouth, wasn't he? And Wayne Rooney, apparently, I don't have anything on Dans, that'd be a lie. But McConnell, there's a lot of interest in taking him on loan.
And just going back to incomings quickly, is there any going under the radar, maybe just briefly, that Liverpool are looking at, or?
No, not that I've heard of. Don't pretend. But Paul Smith put there is not in the same. Xavi Simons is not in the same league as Ryan Cherky. You're wrong, and I'm not comparing them, Paul. I won't pretend I've seen them inside out. I won't pretend I'll watch loads of Ligue 1 or Bundesliga at all, but it was just based on what we were told, as we said. So, yeah, we're only acting on that. But nothing else, mate. Wish I could say there was something else or there's a bomb brewing or something like that. But that is all the filth we can serve up, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure it'll be a busy January in some way, whether that's speculation or actual confirmation of deals. But
Ben, I was lying. That was the bit you were supposed to say, like, what about so-and-so? You missed your cue. Trev would have got this. This is what happens when you start working with animals and kids. It goes wrong completely. So the only other name we have in January, a weird name that we've looked at a lot, the kid Sonko. It's a Swedish youth international. Now, again, I think it is. The only bit we had on him is Liverpool have now been at 7 of his games, which is an awful lot for scouts to be at. The thing, again, like from digging around Sonko, it's like, well, that's a lot of games. What's the interest? This is the one where I'm almost mixing my opinion with what we've been told. So I'll just finish that, what we've been told. Sonko watched a lot of potential. They really are keeping a close eye on him. That's what we've been told. My opinion, not that this necessarily means anything, Ben. Sonko's one of them signings that you think, if we bought the multi-club, that would have been perfect, if that makes sense. And he's a young talent now, and the ceiling may be high. I've no doubts. I can't pretend I know anything particularly about the kid. That would just be a lie. But watching the kid a lot, you just wonder, it's almost like, and we've got no news on the multi-club thing, by the way, but it doesn't strike me that kid will be ready anytime soon for a Liverpool starting position, will it? Or a Liverpool starting squad. And what I mean by that is, you think of the likes of Ben Doak, who's doing very, very well in the Championship. He's still some way off being a Liverpool starting forward, isn't he? Let's be honest. There's some gap there. So again, I just wonder that it intrigues me that we're watching Sonko so heavily and we invested a lot of time. And there's no way you watch someone 7 times unless there's real interest in you. But it doesn't scream like a first team player, does it? Do you know what I mean? So I just wonder about that. But yeah, you missed your cue completely because you're bloody 16. But that was one of the big things that we got. So we got there eventually.
Yeah, it's an interesting one though, isn't it? Because like you say, it is kind of in that kind of limbo area where you're not sure where his development would kind of take place. It reminds me a little bit of like a Football Manager kind of signing more than anything. But yeah, them ones are always kind of more exciting though, because you never know what to really expect. But yeah.
And we got little bits as well. We did get Liverpool have watched, I think it's Richie, it's pronounced, at Torino. So that, again, sort of as a Zubamendi-style alternative, potentially. But Torino were asking big money, and I suspect there's a club in the Premier League that have got their eyes on Richie, would probably pay a bit more than us, shall we say, as well. So that was the other one. And then, as we kind of revealed earlier, Soler, that had been watched, but all the talk about us being really keen and close, over-exaggerated to some extent.
Yeah, he's another one though, isn't he, Soler, where you struggle to see what level he'd really be at. Yeah. You wouldn't be able to tell until he's here, would you? But yeah, you mentioned Richie there, and we'll move on to the Premier League ones. Man City have been interested in him, having there's maybe a potential, not Rodri replacement maybe, but kind of like someone to come in and kind of add a bit of competitiveness into that midfield that's been lacking so much lately.
It's a weird one, City, because, I mean, their legs, they've just fallen off a cliff, haven't they? It's beautiful to watch, don't get me wrong for 1 second. We absolutely adore what we are seeing with Manchester City, and they're collapsing, they're scratching, everything that's going on. I've ruled them out the title race. That's an opinion. A lot of people have ruled them out the title race. Some people have not ruled them out the title race. Now, I think part of it does come because January is round the corner. And I think people are just wondering, because it's funny how the 130ers announced their record profits, didn't they? As in, yeah, we've got money to spend and all that. And the court, just to separate that a bit. There is a suspicion that Pep is going to go more mental than a stag do in a Tijuana brothel, isn't he? And just go absolutely mental in this window. And people have already seen the names, haven't they? Like Bruno at Newcastle. Yeah, again, we're asking journos around like we do. Adam Wharton's been mentioned. There's a real interest in that. I don't know if Palace would sanction their situation. You don't know. And the other one, as we said, Richie. That, you know, if that's how it's pronounced, the Torino boy as well, the Italian international. So there is that suspicion that Pep might just go a bit insane and they might really back it. And I think that knocks on. My thoughts are City will do business this January. They'd be insane not to, really, wouldn't they, if they can do the business? They've got a lot of problems. Will they fix all of them? Not a chance. There's a lot of aging players and a lot of things that need to be sorted there. But I just understand why in the Premier League there might be a few of the Reds just thinking, wouldn't be a bad thing if City maybe didn't do the business they watch. People will rule them out or not. But yeah, City definitely, I think. If you ask me to bet who's going to be your biggest Premier League movers in this window, City.
Yeah, if there's ever going to be a time for them to do it, it's now, isn't it? And the interesting thing, though, is you look at all the signings, and most of them have always had quite a long period of time to kind of bed in. This is going to be a real challenge for Guardiola if they do get a midfielder to come in. They just took them straight in. Who's to say they're gonna hit the ground running? I mean, Rodri didn't, and look how good he is. I mean, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I'm in the same camp as you. I don't think they'll bring it back now, and I think there's just too much of a gap. And you know, obviously, Liverpool need to lose four games pretty much if they win the game in hand, and they need. Yeah, I mean, City are going to drop more points, and at the minute you struggle to see Liverpool dropping that many points. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one. And moving across Manchester to Man United, they're obviously the stature of players is completely different here, but they've got a few contract issues as well, haven't they?
Yeah, it's a weird one with United because the worry is they've been the absolute circus down the road, and it's been absolutely beautiful to watch for months and years. Now, aside from like Sir Jim taking away everyone's M&S vouchers and the free parking passes and all that nonsense, you just wonder if Amorim does seem quite smart, ruthless, and nothing more than Marcus Rashford, isn't it? Marcus Rashford, Garnacho, you see what happens. And I think the biggest news in the football world at the moment, it's fair to say, it's the Rashford interview, isn't it? That Henry Winter got an exclusive. And Henry Winter's clarified those comments as well, because a lot of shows had him on like, have we picked it up wrong, Henry? Like, no, Marcus Rashford has talked about a new challenge and all that, you know, and Amorim tried to do that. Oh, he meant like a new challenge and like, oh, like me being a new manager. No, we didn't, Ruben. We absolutely know we didn't. We all know what Marcus Rashford meant. We know where this has been leading to. But annoyingly for me, this is the sign for me of a strong manager, a smart move. That's just being completely honest, first of all. The second thing is, he just looks like he might be able to get a tune out of shit players. Let's be honest, even like at the moment to a certain extent. I'm not saying they're playing well. They are a terrible team. But he's an organizer. He's a motivator. He's a figurehead. He's obviously a strong personality, and he's not standing for any nonsense. So just your worry is he going to get more of a tune out of them? Now, the gap between us is massive. Let's not pretend. Yeah. But the signs you're seeing from down the East Lancs are probably not the ones we were enjoying as much when Seven Haag was in charge. Let's just be honest on that.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess we'll tell in a few weeks when they come to Anfield, won't we? We'll see whether they have progress or not. Maybe it might be 5 instead of 7. Who knows? But yeah, going into the rest of the Premier League, there's a lot of players with contracts running down as well. I know we spoke about Van Dijk, Trent, Salah, but there's a lot of teams in their perspective losing big players as well. That could be plenty of moves coming up, if not in January in the summer.
Mate, it's honestly like we just sort of as we do ask journalists like about moves and like the amount of people. I mean, De Bruyne is an obvious one. Everyone knows about De Bruyne. I think people expect him possibly. I don't know. I'm saying that I expect him to depart these shores, and that is a big name. There's no two ways about it. But even at other clubs, like talk about Newcastle, Callum Wilson, he's on a free in the summer. The update we got today as well on Newcastle is because they will come to them. But a player they've got an offer in, so keep an eye on that was one thing. But even like Mitchell, the left back at an England international, you forget, at Crystal Palace, he will be on a free. Longstaff at Newcastle, Calvert-Lewin, there's got to be some side who's desperate to a striker that scores 4 goals a season somewhere, do you know what I mean? And just heads it all the time, so maybe that. Couple at like United, Lindelof, Maguire, Diallo. I think the only thing is, and that's probably the bigger updates for United, Amarim's talked about Diallo, saying we need to get that tied up. And he's also probably one of the biggest turnarounds in football history. Let's be honest. In the last few years, Harry Maguire has been one of the players made more fun of than anyone in the Premier League. And he was running his contract down. I mean, do you remember how close he was to signing for West Ham? It's just terms couldn't be agreed last summer. And now, Ruben Amorim is out there saying he's perfect for a 3. And I want to keep him. I mean, what a turnaround that would be. Absolutely insane, wouldn't it? So there's that. We talk about Arsenal, Partey. He's into his last year as well. I think there's talk there is an option there, but I don't know much about that. I'm not pretending I follow Arsenal. Lamptey, the little fullback at Brighton, Rapid. So you just wonder in January, there's less sexy players like Norgard at Brentford as well. But there'll be quite a lot of clubs you're thinking, I know it's got to be abroad to get the pre-contract, Ben. I get that.
Yeah.
But let's not be stupid. There's going to be a lot of clubs as well in the Premier League, just on to players' agent, shall we say, and saying, what would it take for you to move on and a free and white bigs? Do you know what? There's a lot of interesting players, so we'll see what unfolds in January.
Yeah, and just on that, on United, Ahmad has been really good, hasn't he? I mean, he's probably the one when they come downfield in a couple of weeks that you're going to have to keep an eye on, because, I mean, I watched him in the Championship and he was brilliant in the Championship, but he's seemingly to a whole nother level. And yeah, I think they will get that done from what I've heard. And that seems, like you said, I know Amrim's come out and spoke about it, but I'm pretty sure that'll get done pretty soon. So, but yeah, Newcastle, like you said.
The only hope is, this is the hope, Ben, they do a Rashford. So instead of doing a smart deal for Diallo and giving him like 40 or, with a chance to incremental, you just hope someone idiot in there sticks 100 or like 200 grand a week under his nose and it just turns him off like it did with Rashford.
Yeah.
That's the only hope. But I think it looks a little bit smarter with Amorim, at least at United nowadays. We'll have to see.
Yeah, the role that they've got him playing in suits him much. But I mean, well, they started with him at wing back, didn't they? But they're kind of like the 2 10s is working really well, and that's where I think he's at his best. So yeah, he's definitely want to keep an eye on. And like you said, Newcastle are in a bit of a situation at the moment with many people saying they need to sell to buy. And I'm sure a lot of people remember that famous TalkSport call, I think it was, where the supporter was adamant they didn't have to sell. But yeah, Isaac and Bruno G, could they be on the move in January?
It's funny, isn't it? I still remember that TalkSport call. I'm not even going to try and do an accent from your area too badly, but we don't have to sell. Screaming. However, it was funny. Honestly, it was funny for anyone who's not seen it. But just in case you dispute that, Eddie Howe's now said it in press conferences, isn't it? Eddie Howe said yes, because he's not said we have to sell it. He said because of the financial situation, we'll have to see what unfolds. But it is likely that we will have to sell to buy. So naturally, you start looking and thinking, does that mean they're probably not going to renew Longstaff, even though he's a local boy and could do well? Or will they try and flog him in Jan, a few quid? They're looking to move players on. I mean, Callum Wilson, unfortunately for them, has had injury problems galore. So, he's probably going to go on a free, isn't he, in that regard? The only one that we really got over the last few days, Ben, I'd forgot he even played for them, to be honest. Shocking. But Miguel Almiron, the Paraguayan international. So there is an offer from him from an MLS club somewhere around the £10 million mark. Now, let's be honest. I think they've been trying to sell Almiron for like 3 windows now, haven't they, to Saudi club, and he just keeps turning it down. It will be interesting to see because he's nowhere really near the first team picture, is he, with Gordon, Barnes and all those? Will they finally get some money for him? But you just wonder, I mean, let's be honest, if you get 9 million for Almiron, what's it really going to do? So you just wonder, are they susceptible to an Isaac bid? to a Guimaraes bid. Again, will clubs pull the trigger? You'd think if it's Isaac, it's probably Arsenal, isn't it? But if they got the money, the suspicions around that, maybe not for January. City, if it's Guimaraes, that would be the one I think people will not be surprised at all. Not saying it's definite, but a lot of journos have intimated that City and Bruno's agent, let's put it this way, is on social media and active. Let's just put it that way. So he's not a quiet man, Bruno's agent as well at the same time. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Newcastle may just be one to keep an eye on, mate.
Just kind of like a personal question. Bruno G to Liverpool, maybe a bit too old, maybe, but what would you think about that?
Very, very short term, isn't a good player. I like the player. Don't get me wrong. I like the player. I think he could be an honest lot 6. He's not quite as metronomic, shall we say, as Zubimende, but he's physical. He can pass it well. I think he would be a good fit, but he's about 4 years older than they want him to be.
Yeah, just thought I'd throw it out there because it's been some people have spoken about it, but yeah, moving on to Europe, there's a lot of drama going on in Europe at the moment, isn't there? We'll start with Bayern Munich. They're kind of in a similar situation to us, where 3 key players are running the contracts down, and one of them's actually been linked with Liverpool, whether you want to believe it or not. But what's going on over at Bayern Munich?
Bayern Munich, me and Trev love Bayern Munich. It is like Dynasty from the 80s. Again, ask your mum and dad when you finished later on type of thing for a bit of info. But there's a soap opera. There's always something unfolding, mate. And to be fair, you think like Sane's not got long left, hasn't he? So people are asking questions. He's the one that's been linked with us. Not sure. But, you know, a big name, Alphonso Davies. Everyone's kind of waiting. Like, is it going to be Real Madrid, or are you just going to sign a fat contract at Bayern Munich and them into like absolutely ginormous money for a left back? So everyone's waiting for one of those two things to happen. Manuel Neuer, that came out today even. He's set to sign an extension, so he will get another year. So they're keeping his big wages on the books. Kimmich is the other one, isn't he? What's going to happen with him? So there's a lot of big names, as in they might not quite be the players they were, some of them, but there's big reputations there, isn't there? Big names in Europe. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I think it was always clear as well. The two German superstars, Musiala and Wirtz, those were the two. And one plays for Bayern. They're trying to renew Musiala. There's a lot of interest from abroad, a lot of interest. So people waiting to see, does he get a fat contract? Wirtz, everyone, and I get this because it's what happens in German football, isn't it? If there's a top talent in German football, they end up at Bayern Munich. It's not the most complicated or complex program in the world, but Wirtz is set to sign an extension at Bayer Leverkusen because everyone had that being done, didn't they, Ben? Everyone had, or expectation, Wirtz will go to Bayern in the summer, but he's signing or set to sign an extension. So it doesn't seem likely, which also then makes you think, well, what's the knock-on effect? Because what ripples does that send through the transfer window? What people were planning to do and where they thought there's a player, a big youngster, a big talented youngster not available. So Bayern will be a talking point in January and there'll be a talking point in the summer as well. We do like a bit of Bayern, to be honest.
Yeah, I get what you mean. They are always one of those teams that you just don't know what they're going to do. But yeah, looking at elsewhere in Europe, is there any other place to kind of keep an eye on? Maybe running out of contract, or I know a few of them have been linked with moves to the Premier League, whether that be Liverpool or our rivals.
Yeah, there's a few. I suppose the biggest names that people will have heard of or heard about. Jonathan Tah, so he's a Leverkusen boy, isn't he? I mean, he's not signing a renewal. Everyone is expecting Barcelona to be his destination. Not guaranteed. There's nothing officially signed yet. We shouldn't. If there's going to be, we don't have to wait too long to find out at the same time as well. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Tah. Speaking of Jonathan David's the interesting one, isn't he? He will be on a free. Lille, the Canadian striker, scored a lot of goals. There's definite interest in the Premier League from him. There's interest from everywhere in him. It sounds derogatory. I'm not saying he's the world's best striker, but a talented striker on a free transfer is attractive to a lot of clubs, isn't it? So I wouldn't bet on the Premier League being his destination, but he's definitely one to keep an eye on. Forget January. He's not giving up his signing on fee. He might. The only interest be sign a pre-contract agreement. That's the only thing to keep an eye on. But he ain't moving in January. And then the other one, an England international, people forget this, also at the same club, Angel Gomez, the short midfielder, central midfielder, very good on the ball. It'd be interesting to see if he does come back to the Premier League. I mean, he was a former United youngster, done very well at Lille, now at senior England international. I just think a few Premier League clubs will be vying for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's coming home again for a fat signing on bonus. And it wouldn't surprise you if something like United did take him back. Do you know what I mean? That's a typical United move, isn't it? Release the kid and then buy him back, Pogba style. So
Pogba, yeah.
I don't know it'll be there. But I would not be surprised if Angel goes back in the league next summer.
Yeah, I've seen Newcastle a bit. There was even a link that we were interested in him. I don't know how another attack midfielder, funnily enough, like you said. But I've heard Newcastle as well, and kind of see that a bit more. But yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens with them, and that would leave Lille in a. That's an awful two players to lose in one summer if they both leave on a free. But yeah, just going on to Barcelona, this is probably the weirdest kind of narrative going on at the minute. Dani Olmo only just signed in the summer. What's going on with him?
There's nothing weird about Barcelona. Me and Trev have been talking about them for like 6 windows now. And the only rule with Barcelona is be surprised by nothing.
Yeah.
And even now, after all the issues, and they're close. And Laporta said to one of their, I don't know what the name is, or I'm going to try and pronounce it, but the fan forum, let's call it that, the other day is we're pretty close to being back to what they call one in, one out. So like you sell if you sell a player for £1, you can spend £1. Their restrictions being there, which is interesting because all the Spanish journos and the Barca journos they're struggling to register Dani Olmo. And if they don't get it done in January, then under the terms of his contract, he'll be able to like terminate it or leave on a free type. So there's so like, I've given up asking questions. We're more just like when we get told info, we just repeat it because there's no point standing there going like, "What? Hey?" It just doesn't make sense. But Dani Olmo, let's see what happens with him by January in this transfer window because we say this: Barcelona have leavers, Barcelona have loans. They always manage to sell some random player that no one's ever heard of, or some people don't even seem to know he existed, or they owned him for a certain fee. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Dani Olmo, one of the stars of Euro 24.
Yeah.
Insane.
It'll be interesting to see if he does move on a free, who would go in from, because the club that comes to my mind instantly is Arsenal. I mean, I thought they made a mistake in signing Marino in the summer. I don't think he fits what they want to do. And I think Olmo would kind of boost that midfield quite nicely, to be fair. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. So, is there anything else you want to discuss before the end? Anything you want to get off your chest, or?
No, mate. To be fair, it's one of them. Innit? Everyone's. Me and Trev, obviously, we give bits, and we said this. Like, and someone said this to us, like, "Well, aren't you defeating my own program?" It's like, yeah, but if we start coming on here and go, lads, Liverpool are going to sign 26 players in January, everyone's going to go, what are you talking? Do you know what? Like, we can only repeat what we get told, what we hear at Anfield Index. We share the info forever together, and then we repeat it back. Sometimes, by the way, people can take this how they want. I don't really care. We do get things spot on. Sometimes, as with transfers, it's rumours. It's not always right, and we're honest about this. There's no one here pretending to be an ITK or like setting up not to be disparaging of anyone else. Don't get me wrong. We're just sharing, as we always say, me and Trev, what we hear. That's all it is. It's nothing deeper than that. And let's be honest, lads. Talking transfers, everyone loves doing it. It's exciting. And if Liverpool sign those 3 players to renewals, 3 words, Ben, erotic. That's what it will be.
Yeah, it certainly would. It certainly would. That would make Christmas very, very happy for a lot of Liverpool fans. We'll have to get you a yellow tie for the transfer shows, I reckon. I think that would go quite nicely.
I'll do the jokes, mate. You just hit puberty first, then you can worry about jokes. Do you know what I mean? Jesus.
Right, that's everything wrapped up. Thank you, Dave, for kind of helping me through it. I hope I haven't been too bad. I know I'm no Trev. But yeah, keep an eye out on Anfield Index. You'll see Dave an awful lot on the multiple different podcasts. Got loads of stuff coming out over Christmas as well, so don't worry about that. So keep an eye out for all that. And thank you once again for listening or watching to the podcast, and we'll catch you in the next one.
There you go. Fingers crossed. It'll be Trev back and not the work experience boy. But, ladies and gents, that was another transfer show for Anfield Index.